Okay, I'm going to go over the next section for your check, which I believe is 25 to 39. So we have some more solving inequalities. On a problem like this, you have to, let me get my pen real quick, sorry. If it'll let me. There it goes. Oops. You need to remember if we don't see a coefficient, that's a number, in front of a variable or in front of the parentheses, it's an invisible one. So like, let me try this again, sorry. So here, I know it's going to be, is it a visible one in front of that parentheses? There we go. So our first step is to distribute, to get rid of the parentheses. So we just got to rewrite everything. We should have this now as 3 minus 2x, and then a negative 1 times the negative 7. It's going to make that plus 7. And then we have less than or equal to 43 minus 6x. All right, now what we're going to do is we are going to combine our like terms. There are like terms on the left with the constants, the 3 and the 7. So when I rewrite this to the left side, it becomes negative 2x plus 10 is less than or equal to the 43 minus 6x. And now what we're going to do is we're going to get the variables on one side of the inequality symbol or the equal symbol and constants on the other. So start with the smallest variable between the negative 2 and the negative 6. The negative 6 is the smallest, so I'm going to do the opposite to eliminate it by adding 6x on both sides. So now we have a positive 4x plus 10 is less than or equal to the 43. And then now we're going to isolate the x term by getting rid of this plus 10 by doing the opposite, which is minus 10. And I'm going to move it up here to the side here. So this gives me 4x is less than or equal to 33. And then we're going to divide everything by the coefficient, which is this number in front of the x, which is 4. So that cancels, and our x is now isolated. X is less than 33 over 4. So I know we don't have like an actual value fraction on this number line. So I would think it would be easier to convert that to a decimal. You can go to your calculator and just divide our two numbers. So instead of doing fraction, alpha y equals, we're going to just do 33 divided by 4, get the equivalent decimal, which is 8.25. Okay, so, or I'm going to put 8.25. So the 8.258 is a little bit past 8, so I'm just going to put a point here. And it's closed because we have the equal to this line underneath. So this is a closed circle, and it's moving or pointing to the left. So for interval notation, we got to remember if it's pointing to the left, that is a negative infinity. Anything with infinity deals with parentheses. So we got negative infinity, comma, into 8 point, it stops at the 8.25. And since it's a closed dot, it's a bracket. Okay. So I'm going to probably focus on the odds. I'll kind of get you set up on some of the problems, make sure you're on the right track. I want you to try number 26 here. And on this one, you should start off with distributing the 2 first. So if you want to pause and try to work it out, but I will kind of just make sure to show you your final inequality. Okay. Hopefully when you distribute, you get to here. 5x plus 24 is greater than the 2x minus 18 minus 3x. And then you have your like terms on the right side. So you're going to have to combine those. Don't forget your sign. All right, so try that. You should end up with x is greater than negative 7. So because it's just greater than negative 7, it's an open circle pointing to the right. Okay, so just check what you did. That's what I said. You might want to pause and then come back and just see if you get it. Because I'm not going to work it all the way through, but you need to show the work or be ready to ask questions on how to get to that answer. Focus on the how when doing this review. All right, word problems and inequalities. We have to know those keywords. Kind of look at taking a sentence at a time. If I look at this first one, it says for more than, okay, so more than is important, 3 times a number. So we don't know what that number is. Anytime I say a number, I'm just going to substitute that with X. And then anytime I see the word is, that is an equal sign. So 4 more than 3 times a number would be 3 times a number would be 3x. 4 more than that would be plus 4 is equals 75. And now we're just solving for x. So isolating the x term, the variable, so minus 4, minus 4. Oh, I just realized it's 175. Got right there, sorry. So we get 3x equals 171. And then we're just dividing by 3. Let me change that. On both sides, divide by always the number in front of x. That's the coefficient. And so our answer is, oops, I think it's a decimal. No, it's not a decimal. I forgot. 57. 57. So on 28 here, 7 less than is subtraction. We have 2/3 of a number. So 2/3 of a number is like saying 2/3 x. Okay. And then don't forget is 5. So try that one, see if you can get to that answer. Now on 29, you have a couple perimeter problems. One with a rectangle and one with a triangle. So for the rectangle, there's a formula for perimeter, and then the P equals 2L plus 2W. Okay, and we just got to recognize whenever we have a rectangle, we're going to have a length and a width. They're telling us that our perimeter is 24, so that represents our P. But they tell us also that the length is, so length equals 8. So this is 8. They want us to find the dimension of the rectangle. That means they want us to find the length and the width. If I know this is 8, I'm missing my width. So I'm just going to put W here, and opposite sides in a rectangle are equal. And so we're going to substitute the parts in the formula. P is 24 equals, we have 2 W's plus 16. And now we're just solving for W because we already know what the length is. So we're just going to subtract the 16. I'm going to just write it to the side here. That's going to give us 8 equals 2W. And then that means that divided by 2, 4 is our W. Okay. Now on your 30 here, we have a rectangle again, but it says the length is 5 more than the width. So if I'm looking at my length and it's 5, my width is my W's. 5 more than that would be W plus 5. Okay, that kind of helps you make sure you're on the right track. Plug in 42 for the P, plug it into the formula. So like if we have 42 equals 2 times my W plus 5, which is my length, plus my 2 W's, then we're just distributing and solving for W. And then on, on 31 here, now we're doing the perimeter of a triangle. A triangle has 3 sides. So if you just kind of sketch a triangle, it says the side lengths of x plus 2, and 2x minus 40. And the perimeter is 70. So this would be 70 equals, we add up all the x's, That would be 4x. Add up our constants here. Minus 40 plus 2 is going to give me minus 38. And now we're just solving for the x to get to get to our length of each side. Sorry. So we're going to have to add that 38. And then 108 equals 4x. And then we're dividing that by 4. So 27 is one of the lengths. Then we're doing 27 plus 2, so that's 29. We're doubling the 27, 54, minus the 40, it's going to give me 14. And that's what we got to plug it back in. Okay. All right, then that kind of ends up our equations and inequality set. Now we're going to get into our next section, which is dealing with functions. So there's a couple of things we have to remember when dealing with function notation. In function notation, the f of x is the y coordinate. So like whenever we have coordinates x and y, this is the same as x and f of x. Okay. So the f of x is your y value. Now, value. There are two things you have to know for function notation. You need to know that, let me just come over here real quick. X is the input, which is basically, this is what you plug in. Okay. And your y, sorry, I changed that. Y is the output, which is your range. And this is what comes out. The output is what comes out. So on 33, since they want you to find f of x of 3, your 3 here is the x. This is basically what we're going to plug in to the equation. So we're going to plug in 3. And anytime we're doing plug-ins, we have to use substitution, which means we use parentheses. So when I write this for my x squared, this would be parentheses 3 is inside of where the x is, then square it, then plus 9. So this would be 9 plus 9. So the output is 18. So f of 3 equals 18. Okay. So I want you to try g sub x when g is 10. Try that one. Don't forget about your sign. You should end up with negative 29. Now we're going to find these values off the table. So remember, this is our x column and our f of x column. So if this is the x, what's inside the parentheses the x, I go on the x column, find the 3, and see what it maps to. 3 maps to the 9. So f of 3 equals 9. Same thing, if f of 0, I go find the 0. Here's a 0, it maps to the 3. And there's our answer. You try the negative 2 and the negative 1. If there's no number in the table, then it does not exist. We can't get it off of there. Now, if f of x equals 9, they want to know what is the x. So this is a little bit backwards. This represents the f of x column, the y. So now we have to start, sorry, since this is the output, we start here, there's the 9, and then we work backwards. X would equal 3. Okay, try the next one. Now to read it off of a graph, you have to remember that the function, the given graph is the function f of x. So let me get my highlighter real quick. The f of x is this whole curve. So we have to find our answer on the curve somewhere. So if I'm doing f of 2, we have to remember the 2 represents what part? Oops, sorry. The 2 represents the x. Okay. So if that's the x, that means I have to look on the x axis and find where the 2 is. The 2 is right here. But I want to see where it lands on the curve. So that point is 2 comma negative 2. Remember, we're trying to get x and y, the points, because that's the same thing as x and f of x. So since I know the output, it lands at a negative 2, this answer here is a negative 2. Okay, remember, this is our input. What's inside the parentheses is the input, and what comes out is the output. Now we're trying to work backwards. Find the x when f of x equals 2. This represents, I'm just going to change it real quick. This is the y. So I need to go on the y-axis to a negative 2. Here's the negative 2. But then I need to go where the graph touches, or where the curve is at x for that point. Well, it happens right here. And our answer here is also 2. Now, for when the f of x equals 0, so this is 0 here, but it's also 0 here. Okay, so there's 2 points when the function hits the 0. Okay, and that's when x equals 0. Right here, this is the point 0, 0, the origin, and when x is a negative 5. Okay, now from graphs, we're going to ask you to do the equations. You can use your calculator as a shortcut. Meaning, remember, this is our g sub x, our function notation, same thing as y. So this is negative 3x plus 1. And so we can type this and then use the table. Or if I know g sub x equals 16, okay, since this is the y, then I can take that number and plug it where the y is. So 16 equals negative 3x plus 1. And just solve it like an equation. So when we're solving here, we're going to do minus 1, minus 1. We get 15 equals negative 3x. So x equals negative 5. Now, let me just review how you can do the table, a shortcut. So if you go to y equals, and let me clear these out. And we go type in negative 3x plus 1, and then go to table, so that second graph. We're trying to find on the table when the y column is 16. So like basically, I'm looking at these numbers. Well, these go negative, so I need to go up. Oops, sorry. I need to scroll up, so I need to scroll on the axis, sorry. So I have to go up to find when we get a 16, and there it is. So make sure when you scroll, you're scrolling in the x column. I forgot about that, okay? So once you try those, okay, and then domain and range here, we have to remember domain represents our x values, our range are our y, and for it to be a function, we cannot repeat, okay? If it's a function, no repeating x. No repeating x. So here the domain is just our 6, 7, 8. Our range, negative 4, 3, 1, and 5. Is there a function? Well, actually on mapping, anytime we see a number split off to 2, because this is saying 6 is to 3 and 6 is to 5, this is no. Okay. You try the next one. All right. So that's that section, and then we are going to move on to the next section, which I believe is 40 to 61. Okay. All right. Hopefully that helps.